Mr. Defense Minister, talks are underway with Iran. The initial reports seem to be surprisingly upbeat. Do you have hope that this can be resolved diplomatically?
Hopes, of course I have, but I'm realistic enough to not to be so optimistic about it. The Iranians have a long tradition of deceiving and defying the whole world, sometimes even through certain diplomatic steps like this. So we are a little bit skeptical.
Right now, there seems to be an attempt to prepare their own people. Senior Iranians, the foreign minister, the nuclear negotiator, are giving interviews talking about the possibility of not enriching to 20% in return for having the right to have a civilian program. Does that give you some hope that the conversation seems to be changing inside Iran?
I always hope, I would love to wake up some morning and to see that it's all over. The Ayatollahs decided to put an end to their military nuclear program, but that's not the case right now.
Right now, there is an enormous amount of talk and focus about the fatwa by Iran's supreme leader, who's in charge of all the programs. Not only Iranians are talking about the fatwa, in which he said that Iran would not possess, would not develop, it's a great sin under Islam to have a nuclear weapon or anything of weapons of mass destruction. But it's not just him. It's Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It's even President Barack Obama. It's the Prime Minister of Turkey. It's many people now talking about this fatwa as if it could be some kind of diplomatic exit, an off-ramp to the crisis.
I don't buy it so easily. It is the same Khamenei who said just a year ago he scorned Gaddafi for buying so easy the pressure to give up his nuclear military program, and he pointed to where he is now. And have you heard the term taqiyya, which means in Islam, especially in the Shia, a kind of permission from heaven to the leader to lie and mislead partners as long as it's needed in order to reach the objective, the political objectives of the movement, the group, or the tribe, the clan, or the nation. So it's, I don't buy it. I follow the facts on the ground. Enrichment continues. They got a pause of 5 weeks until the next gathering in Baghdad. Everything is still working. It is clear to all of us, to Mossad, CIA, MI6, whoever, that the Iranians are focused on reaching nuclear military capability. They are ready as ever to defy and deceive the whole world.
You're obviously very concerned, and so are many, should Iran get a nuclear capability that's military. As I said, the US does not believe any such decision has been made. But there are people...
No, I want to correct you.
But that's what they tell us.
No, listen, ask them the following question.
Their intelligence doesn't believe.
No, I know. I'm talking to the American intelligence. I talk to American leaders. There is no difference in the assessment of intelligence. It's true that probably Khamenei did not give an order to start building a weapon or a device. But why he's doing this? Just because he understands that if he starts to break the IAEA and starts to actually build a weapon, he might find himself faced with an American response or Israeli response or whoever in a way that might damage him. And that's the only reason why he did not give the order, but they're clearly heading toward this objective.
But if that's the case, then surely the pressure is working, that they're not doing it, as you said, because the pressure is there and the threat of what you might do.
These are quite effective sanctions, but it's still far away from working.
I just want to go back to the fatwa in regard to what you've just said. As I said, many American officials are talking publicly about the fatwa, and there is a thought that President Obama might agree to allow Iran a civilian enrichment program if they can back up their fatwa and prove that they're not going to go the military route. Would you accept that?
No, there's no need for fatwa. If they stop enriching for 20%, they stop bringing out of country to a friendly, mutually agreed state the 20% enriched uranium and the 3.5% enriched uranium beyond a few hundred kilograms, which is not enough for a single device, and decommission the installation in Qom and put the whole activity under the tight inspection of Protocol 3.1 of the IAEA and answer all the questions that had been raised by the IAEA along the last years about their military activities in regard to nuclear weapons. Once they do this, it means that they gave up the military nuclear program. But that's the test. And that should be the threshold that the P5+1 are setting for them. If this threshold is not set at the opening meetings of this negotiation, it will never be met. And without meeting it, you will never know whether you moved a little bit toward ending this military project, or you just buried your head into the sand.
You're going to give this diplomacy a chance, you said. Is there any likelihood that there could be an order to strike Iran before the next round of talks?
Christian, I assume you understand that I do not like the kind of flood of descriptions and speculations about Israeli possible attacks on Iran. I think that it should be remained in the behind closed doors as a part of a vague understanding that there is a big stick in the background, and that it, when we say, and when the Americans say, when others are saying that all options are on the table, we mean it, and we expect others to mean it as well, and that might suffice. I don't think that it will help in any tangible manner to convince the Iranians by going into speculation about how such a strike, American or Israeli, might look like.
One of your own journalists, Channel 10, got a lot of access from your own military, your own Air Force. It was cleared by your own military censors, so it must be fine by you all. Describing the strike force, describing waves of aircraft, that there could be dozens of fighter planes.
You don't seriously expect me to...
Many people understand the threat as you see it. What many people don't understand and don't really appreciate is the possibility that this could trigger a wider war, that Iran would react in some kind of way through its proxies that would ignite a much, much bigger war.
I've read almost any paper that came out of any American think tank or any other source in the last year, and I should tell you, I tend to agree with those of the experts who are saying that however complicated and with certain risk, even certain kind of unintended consequences of dealing with Iran during the coming year, it will be extremely more complicated, extremely more dangerous, and extremely more costly in terms of human lives and financial resources to deal with Iran once it is nuclear. And bear in mind, if we, the international community and Israel, including Israel, will not act to actually, concretely stop them, we will end up with a nuclear Iran. It already happened with North Korea. It happened already with Pakistan. And Iran, as the third player, it will be the end of any conceivable non-proliferation regime with many other consequences.
Do you think Iran will strike back if Israel attacks its nuclear programs? I
don't know. I assume that everyone will contemplate what to do if something happens, whether it's Israel or America or anyone else. I don't want even to go into it. I fully realize there are no actions, no steps that could be taken without having any risk.
Many American officials who I've spoken to fear that if there is an attack on the nuclear program there, that is what could turn them into making that decision to actually go military. Do you worry about that?
You know, you cannot exclude, when you're talking about the future, you cannot exclude kind of mathematically any kind of possibility. The real nightmare of the Iranian leadership is that America will be somehow dragged into it. It is clear to them, even along explicit statements from the top American principals, that if they break the IAEA and start moving toward nuclear explodable device or weapon, America will contemplate action. That's what deters them. And beyond that, Israel might probably contribute to these deterrence. But that's the only reason.
Do you believe that any strike on their nuclear program at this time can do full damage? Can it end the nuclear program?
What do you mean end? There is nothing, there is no foolproof realities. We are, both of us, mature enough to realize no perfect solutions.
In a moment, we'll be back with more of my conversation with Ehud Barak. On Syria, he had surprisingly strong call to action to stop the slaughter there. Now back to my conversation with the Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak and his message to the United States on Iran and his unmistakable call for action to stop the slaughter in Syria. You are going to be meeting with your counterpart, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. Will Israel give the United States a heads up? Will they inform the United States if you decide to make a decision to attack Iranian's nuclear program?
You know, we don't have a decision as of now. It's not about, it's something that we are contemplating. We have a very open, kind of frank discussion of these issues with the Americans.
But will you alert them, inform them?
I don't want to go into the details. We do whatever is makes sense and is reasonable. I don't want to
Do you think they would join a war if you started one or decided to launch a strike?
I don't want to implicate the United States. I do not want to drag the United States into something. I think that the Iranian case is a major challenge for the whole world, not just for Israel, but we ultimately contemplate our position. We would love, together with you, and I believe the leaders here, to wake up one day, as I've said, and see that it's all over. But we should be open-eyed and never lose kind of eye contact with the challenge and be able to make judgment and be able to take decisions if and when they are needed.
One of the things that people always ask me and makes them worried for Israel is about what President Ahmadinejad was said to have said a few years ago about, quote-unquote, wiping Israel off the face of the map. Many Iranian officials who I've interviewed, including just now recently, have said that is not what he said, nor is it the policy of the Iranian government to have any military attack on Israel. Your own minister, Dan Meridor, said that, yes, that is not what Ahmadinejad said. He didn't say wipe Israel off the face of the map. Do you accept that, or do you still believe that Iran has a military design on you?
I think that we are focusing too much on the nuances of rhetoric rather than on the content.
This is really important because everybody talks about this.
No, I will tell you exactly what he said. He said, and others said in public many times, that the Zionist entity, it's a code name for Israel, is something unnatural in Israel, in the Middle East, and should be removed or destroyed. That's what he said. But, you know, we should be responsible. I do not like to draw comparisons from 70 years ago. It's not the same. Israel had been and is still and will be in the foreseeable future the strongest military power in the Middle East, 1,000 miles around Jerusalem, from Tripoli in Libya to Tehran, including those two places. And we will remain strong.
I want to ask you about how you assess, which you must do on a daily basis, the rationality of the regime in Tehran. One of your own former intelligence chiefs, as you know, Meir Dagan of Mossad, was asked by 60 Minutes whether he believes Iran is rational.
The regime in Iran is a very rational regime.
Do you think Ahmadinejad is rational?
The answer is yes. Not exactly our rationale, but I think that he is rational.
So this is your own intelligence chief saying that?
Yeah, it's okay. He has the right, the freedom of speech and expression of thought, and he's clearly someone that we have to listen to. But I tell you my position. It's an extremist, radical Muslim faction.
I want to ask you another quote as well. It's along the same lines, and it was told to our own journalist, Fareed Zakaria.
When you observe Iranian behavior, does it strike you as highly irrational? Does it strike you as sort of unpredictable, or do they seem to follow their national interest in a fairly calculating way?
That is a great question, and I'll tell you that I've been confronting that question since I commanded Central Command in 2008. And we are of the opinion that the Iranian regime is a rational actor. And it's for that reason, I think, that we think the current path we're on is the most prudent path at this point.
Yeah, you quoted him properly, so it means that that's his position.
I'm going to switch to Syria.
Wow.
I'm hot too.
Yeah, go ahead.
The world is wringing its hands right now to try to figure out what to do about Syria. People are wondering whether there should be any military intervention. A senior U.S. administration official told us that that would be very difficult, airstrikes on Syria, because of Syria's very sophisticated air defense systems. How do you assess Syria's air defense systems? Are they any match for the United States, for Israel?
They are more sophisticated than the Libyan system or probably even the Iranian system, but they are not a match for any modern Air Force capability. But I think that what happens there is a tragedy. It's a crime. They are slaughtering their own people by the day.
Should there be intervention?
I don't know what kind of intervention. There should be much louder voice and backed by actions. Action should can take many ways. Tighter sanctions, telling the leadership that they might end up with the world support at The Hague, but at the same time, anything from providing them with weapons to creating free areas along the border so that people can concentrate there if they are fleeing out of these slaughtering and rape and robbery and whatever.
Safe areas.
Yeah.
For a long time, many smart analysts said that if Syria goes, it'll affect the whole region negatively, that Israel would prefer to deal with, quote, the devil it knows than the devil it doesn't. Do you still count on Bashar Assad?
I think that he lost his legitimacy. I predicted he will fall much faster, but it didn't happen probably because we are not, or the world is not active enough. I think that what happens in Syria should disturb us much more profoundly. The toppling down of Assad will be a major blow to the radical axis, major blow to Iran. It will weaken dramatically Iran. It's the only kind of outpost of the Iranian influence inside the Arab world. The Iranians are not Arabic. And it will weaken dramatically both Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. And it will be a very positive event. But having said that, he will not fall down if he's brutal enough with his forces. The more he's slaughtering his people, the more the prospect is of later on a civil war rather than immediately creating a certain majlis representative of all groups.
So just to, I mean, you've said all this. So shouldn't the United Nations, the world powers, lead some kind of effort to end this?
We're experienced enough with these organs. In the United Nations, you need the UN Security Council resolution. The Russians and the Chinese will not agree for reasons that
they didn't
are
need in Kosovo.
Quite obvious. But we still remember, Kosovo, you mentioned Kosovo. Yeah. Kosovo was an example. Yeah. Clinton and Blair did it on their own. Libya is an example. NATO with Turkey at the front can take certain steps to influence, but Turkey should feel the tailwind from Europe, from America, from the whole world by taking those steps. And I think that more could and should be done. We will regret it when we will look at it a year later backward. We will regret being unable to coordinate certain international, much tougher and clearer response, both vocally and, more important, on the ground, in order to put an end to it. Not necessarily through sending divisions. There are many other ways.
Ehud Barak, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you.